All right, good evening, folks. Welcome to the March edition of the Astroimaging Special Interest Group. And we've got an interesting program tonight. We're going to start off the way we usually do with um, a chance for any new folks to introduce themselves. And then if there are any beginner questions, we'll try to address those before we start with our main topic. So I see a few names that look new. Um, any of you folks that are on here for the first time want to introduce yourself, please turn on your audio now and tell us about yourself.
Hi everyone, it's Joe. I'm not new. I was at a couple of videos, or sorry, a couple of meetings before, but I actually lit up when I saw the email notice because I usually check my email too late and miss the meetings. Um, so I kind of have a question. I don't know if it's allowed, but I had thrown a star party at my work at Alley Cat on Friday, and I used Nina for the star party to show everybody the images. And yesterday, I started thinking about whether or not I could find something or find a plugin for live stacking. And I know that the developers are coming up with something to use within the sequencer function, but I wanted something that I could use like a snapshot because that's what I was doing at the party. I'd stay on the Rosette for a little bit, and then I'd move over to Orion and show people different things in the sky. So last night, with a lot of help from Claude, I started developing a plugin, and so I was wondering if maybe somebody from the club would be interested in helping me test it out and giving me some feedback and something like what could be improved or different ideas.
Yeah, I'm sure that's something we could handle. Probably the best way for you to address that, we can maybe get to it at the end of the meeting tonight, since that sounds like a pretty advanced topic. But you could post that on the TAAA forum, and I'm sure you get all kind of responses. I know I would be interested in seeing what you're doing.
Yeah, definitely. I'll be here all meeting, so you just
Okay,
let me know when it's time.
okay.
All right, thanks, Joe.
Any other new folks want to introduce themselves? Don't be shy.
Alex looks new. Is Alex new?
Okay, you can be lurkers. We don't care. Um, any other beginner type questions? No beginner questions. Okay. Well,
I
uh,
have a
what we're going
question.
to try to do this evening is I'm going to pose a series of questions, and in on fairness, I've shared these with Alan already, but he's a user of Nina for several years now, and he's going to try to answer those questions um, to help educate folks like me who are just getting introduced to the program. And even if you don't use Nina right now, I think because of the fact that it's very powerful, it's very cheap, and it allows you to participate in a type of
Hello?
imaging that could be even considered remote imaging. So there are a lot of reasons to consider it, even if you're using the ASI Air or some other method for controlling your data acquisition. So that's the intent this evening. And as we go along, I'll have a question, or actually 10 questions, but feel free to jump in and unmute yourself if you have a question. And I'm sure Alan will do his best to direct you in the right direction if he can't answer it himself. So those are the rules, okay? Alan, are you ready?
I'm ready.
You can share your screen at any time.
Okay, let me try that. Let's see. All right, I'm going to just share Chrome and see what happens.
Very good. So the first question that every newbie would probably want to ask is, how do I install Nina? Where do I go to get the software?
Well, through the magic of Google, you can always just Google it. It's just Nina. I, I looked at it before. Just Google Nina Astronomy software and you'll find it. Let's see.
And is the software easy to download and install, or do you have
Um,
to jump through some hoops?
it's very easy to install. What I recommend is download the offline um, repository, I guess, for lack of a better word.
Okay.
There it is, nighttimeimaging.eu. So you can just see this page here, and you can just, there are a couple of versions. There's the current version and the beta version and the nightly. So the nightly is for the brave, and they just come right out and say it. If you see my installation, I'll get it back. It just says, the nightly unstable version.
Okay.
So I usually wait till about nightly 15 before I get on board. So let me get my Nina installation back. So here we go. So here's my installation. So I just downloaded it, and it's really pretty standard. I watch, I'm sure a lot of you do too, Queeve the Lazy Geek. He has a soup to nuts installing, setting up a new PC. So basically you download the software, you download the drivers, and you're ready to roll.
Okay. And this is what the main screen looks like when you load it up, correct?
Yeah, so this is the equipment screen.
Right. Okay.
So Nina, as Joe mentioned, has plugins, and I use the over here it shows the available and the installed. I use connector. So basically, when I start up Nina, it connects everything.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, and you have options. You can unpark your scope. I like to move the focuser to a specific spot because yeah, because I use ASTAP for plate solving, and it's kind of focus critical. I mean, it's amazingly fast. It's ridiculously fast. But if you don't have a good focus, you're screwed. So I usually go to 3900 on my focuser. Your mileage may vary. And then I run an autofocus, and then I start my night.
Okay,
So
I
3900
noticed under the options uh, there that one of the things that is sometimes asked for is the profile up there at the very top. What is a profile, and do you need more than one?
I like to use more than one just because it has all my settings for, if I'm on a different scope or a different mount, I have a different configurations for each.
So if
And
you, so
one,
if you,
I'm sorry to interrupt, one has like for if I'm down a CAC, and one has if I'm in my backyard on my pier, you'll see here, I have a 10 micron mount, an ISR scope and a TAC scope, a
Gotcha.
Takahashi scope, sorry. So I have different profiles for that.
So that if you use more than one setup, then you probably should have a profile for each one of those, correct?
Yeah, that's definitely easier.
Okay. And you just basically add those on, right? You make as many as you need.
Yeah, the one thing that, it makes perfect sense, but I don't like it is you can't switch while you're connected. So like if I try to switch to this one right now, I can't because everything's connected. I've tried it and it doesn't work. So you'll see, this little power switch shows that it's connected. So you can't make any changes to the, well, you can't pick a different profile. You can make all the live changes you want, but you can't change the profile under general.
Okay. Well, that looks pretty straightforward.
Okay.
Um, so I've got the software installed and I've created a profile for myself. How do I go about connecting my camera and my mount?
Well, you can either connect it manually, quote unquote manually, with each of these buttons. I use the connector plugin and it just connects everything. So you can just click on this to disconnect everything down here. And I'll do that now. And it says disconnect all devices. Okay. And it will just run through and everything's disconnected. It doesn't have a little power symbol, and you'll see this is grayed out now. So it's just a toggle. So it connects everything or it disconnects everything. So there you go. So everything's connected now. It's
Oh,
just
okay.
as simple as that. If you get, let's say, a new camera and it's not showing up, so I'm just going to disconnect my camera so I can show that. And then you have the drop down where you'll choose the correct camera.
So normally it would pick the camera that you've defined in the profile.
It will pick the one that you've defined in the profile, and you get to choose the profile. There's a chooser here. I'll quit Nina. So when you quit it, it says the camera's still connected. Do you want to exit anyway? And now it'll disconnect everything anyway. So this will just take a minute. So when you launch Nina, you get this window where it shows you what's going to connect and which profile is in
Okay.
use. And so I'm just going to load that profile, and it's just going to start up using that profile. You do have the option you saw there to stop asking me if I want to choose every time.
Okay.
So one nice feature, you get these messages over here, when it's connecting everything. And if it doesn't like it, you get a red X. Red is bad. It doesn't really matter for the purposes of this. But one thing I like about Nina, you have this option to just close all, and all the messages will go away.
So is there anything tricky about getting the mount connected? I know people use a lot of different mounts, and I guess they all need to be ASCOM compliant.
It doesn't need to be, but it should be, as long as you install the correct driver. And I'll disconnect it's listed under telescope here. So I'll disconnect it. And here are all my drivers. So I have a 10 micron mount. So once I install the driver, it shows up there. And then it connects automatically when I connect it. So it's just a matter of, I just guide. I don't use an off-axis guider, and I don't use PhD. So I just have the mount do it there.
Okay.
I'm sorry to interrupt. I have the plugin called which one is it? I forget which one it's called right now, but it basically reconnects things. So if I open a sequence, I use the advanced sequencer, which we'll talk about, I guess, later.
Yes.
I think Greg has a question lined up for me on that. So we'll just pick a sequence and open the file, and it's just Windows, opening a file is pretty easy. So it's got some instructions because this is a relatively new installation. So I've got it so that it reconnects some of these plugins if they accidentally disconnect. If I trip over the wire, which I've been known to do in the dark,
Okay.
and it reconnects. So that's it, and you get the little I think it's I with a circle in red, and it shows you, why it's giving you that error message.
Okay.
Sometimes you care, sometimes you don't.
Okay. So next question. Let's say we've got the scope and the camera all connected. Do you have to have an electronic focuser?
You don't have to. I've done it without it. I can't imagine life without one now, honestly, because I just set it and forget it. And especially in the desert Southwest where the temperature can change 40 degrees, unless you're your tube is rock solid and impervious to temperature changes, you're going to have to refocus several times throughout the night. So I use if we go to focuser, I use a ZWO EAF, and it just focuses automatically every time. You know, the stars, the HFR, I have it set up to focus. You can set up a couple of different options. You can have it focus on time, on temperature. I have it when the HFR increases a certain amount. So we'll see here. So here I have autofocus after HFR increases by a certain percentage.
Okay.
5% is the default.
So just to be devil's advocate, let's say I don't have an electronic focuser. You still can stop a sequence and do a manual focus.
You can, the beauty of one of the beauties of Nina is that you can stop at any time and make changes on the fly even. So it has a built-in batten off mask. One of these options, I think, is this one. And so it will make it easier to focus. Focusing is always a challenge for me, honestly.
Okay.
So I like the electronic, let it do its thing.
Okay, we had a question from somebody, put it on the chat, was where do I go to learn about plugins? Should we hold that till the end?
Yeah, I mean we can hold it till the end. Honestly, plugins, maybe Joe will talk about it since he's developing a plugin.
Okay.
It basically just adds functionality to Nina. And much to my surprise, it's actually very well documented. If you go to that website that I pointed you to at the beginning, the documentation is great. So here's the website, and the documentation is really well done. It's really explicit, and there's a lot there.
So does the Nina website have a listing of available plugins, or do you have to search around on the web for those?
Actually, when you first start Nina, it shows you everything that's available. So if I go to plugins here and I click on available here, so here are all the ones that are around, and a brief explanation for some of them, says what they do.
So you didn't have to download those. They're just there and you can select them to install or not.
Right.
Okay.
And it tells you when you launch the program, if you have an update, there's a little, it might say a little one up here. And then you'll see what's available. You can choose check for updates or update all. There's an option there. So if you have like 5 and you don't feel like looking to see what's getting updated, you can just click update all. And you're done.
Okay. I know that you mentioned ASTEP before, and is some other software that is required along with Nina to make it fully functional. So could you tell us about ASTEP and PhD2?
Sure. ASTAP it's actually a stacking program, but Nina uses it for its plate solving, which is, like I said, amazingly fast. But focus is a little bit critical, so I always run focus and then I do my plate solving, and I almost never have a problem. If you're going under options, and here are the under general, you have some options, and the plugin repositories. So if anybody adds a plugin, they have to put it here, and then it'll show up as available. I also like that you can have a custom horizon. I'm sorry if I'm jumping around here, but it comes in handy. So like if you're, let's say, for example, in my backyard, and I currently face east and there are some trees and stuff, you can make your own horizon file very easily. Patriot Astro has a great video on how to do it. It takes 5 minutes. So then when you build a model, for example, because I use the kind of software that builds models, or the kind of mount, I should say. So it will load, let me, so here's my model. So there's my custom horizon. So based on that file, so if I generate 100 points, it respects that horizon. So at the 100 points it generates are above the horizon.
Okay.
That was pretty cool.
So I've noticed in the past when I've had ASTEP and like I try to do a plate solve before it's real dark, sometimes it'll fail. And then you can have a backup program like astronomy.net.
Yeah, you can have a backup. It's slower and
Yeah.
it requires an internet connection, for example. But you can have a backup so that if it does fail, it will check the backup.
Okay.
Is that under, I forget where that is. It's one of the options. Oh, so once you click on options, so here's your plate solver settings, and here's where my ASTAP program is, and it says to use ASTAP, and it will eventually fall back to the blind plate solving if it needs to, but I've never had to. But it's kind of there if you need it. It's nice.
Now, you mentioned that you do or don't use PhD2 for guiding.
I don't guide. Um, I'm fortunate enough to have the kind of mount that doesn't require any help for, 5 or 10 minute exposures, as long as you have a good polar alignment. And, it builds a model based on the sky. So I don't guide, but if you were imaging, you just click on the imaging tab here, and you can add PhD anywhere here. These are all movable with all these panes. So you see you get these Windows options where you can screw it up royally, honestly. But there's an option to just reset it and start over, which is
Okay.
great. If you reset it and start over, you can then customize it any way you want it. So for example, I have autofocus, that's not a great curve. My scope is covered right now, but last night there were some high clouds, which is probably what's causing this, but this happened all while I slept, so I'm pretty happy with that. So it has autofocus built in, but you can use Hocus Focus, which speeds it up a little bit. It's a plugin. So, I would talk to any of the people that really use it a lot to get, kind of the must-have plugins. Orbiculum is nice because we'll get into this later, I guess, but in the advanced sequencer, you can say, it gives you basically a look ahead feature. So if you're imaging 3 targets, you can loop on this first one until the next one gets above that horizon that you've specified. And the Orbiculum plugin gives you that capability.
Okay. I noticed that one of the things under options is there's a list of different folders that you can set up for sequences and images and
Oh, yeah.
targets. Do you use those?
I use them occasionally. Again, Patriot Astro hasn't been around for a while, but he made some really nice sequences. I just kind of build on them and I just change the target. So if you're on the left side here, if you choose a target, let's say M31, for example. And then it'll load everything for you and you'll be able to just update that sequence, which is what I do. I typically, just get a sequence that I like and I modify it on the fly. So in a minute, when this uploads, there we go. So it gives you a little preview. This rectangles, that's my camera, based on the information I've given it. So that's what it's going to look like. And you can either add the target using one of those sequences, or you can just update the existing. So here, let's say I'll update this one, and it will just put that target info in the sequence that I have going here.
So basically, you have a sequence that's kind of like a template, and you just add the new target to it.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Well, that was one of my questions down the line, but you've kind of already introduced us to the framing tool. That looks very valuable.
And I personally love the flat wizard. I'm sorry to go out of order, but it makes capturing flats almost fun, which I never thought I would say. I'd still rather not have to do it, but stuff happens. You have to take your stuff apart, all the reasons. So the multi-mode I love, and so you have per filter, and you can say you want a certain percentage, and you want it within a certain percentage, the tolerance, and the minimum and maximum flat exposures, and it will search for the right one to get you this ADU. And it's just, as you turn them on, so like last night I ran just LNR. So I just turned them on and I just ran them, and it takes 5 minutes. It's almost, like I said, almost fun.
And you just would use whatever you use to make flats, t-shirts or a sky flat or whatever.
Yeah, I use a little light panel that I bought off Amazon for like 20 bucks.
Okay.
And I just stick the light panel on top of the scope. It actually has the option to just slew to the zenith, so you'll choose that. And then you just put the light panel on top and hit play, hit the play button down here, and it
Let it
goes.
go, huh?
Yeah.
So, does it do flat darks? It says darks up there. Are those flat darks?
Yes.
Okay. So you can
So
have it do those if you want to use those.
yeah, it will do darks. So when it runs through all these things, then it'll say, okay, cover your scope, just like you would normally shoot darks, and it'll make darks. PixInsight almost always throws an error. PixInsight is what I use for image processing. Uh, it's kind of a polite error. It's like it'll work, but it tells you it might not be the optimum results. I personally can't see the difference, and if I can't see any difference, it's fine with me.
Okay.
So that's pretty much it.
So, okay. Um, you've talked about the framing tool already, but can you give us a brief description of what's the difference between the legacy sequencer and the advanced sequencer? I know you said you use the advanced, but for some of us beginners, the legacy sequencer is a little bit easier to start with, I think.
Yeah, the advanced sequencer is more of a very easy programming language. Now, I'm no programmer, and I typically will set up a sequence and go, and the next day when it didn't work, I'll say, oh, well, obviously, this is why, and I'll fix it. But I didn't see it at the time.
Okay.
So, that's what the advanced sequencer gives you. It also gives you some options because I'm kind of glad they added these because I would have like do it, here's a smart exposure, just do this exposure, and I would accidentally grab it and I'm like, oh shoot, where do I put it down? Where was it? So they give you the option to just lock the display. They have great tooltips.
Okay.
So if you lock the display, then it makes it so that you can't accidentally screw it up. You can intentionally screw it up, but not accidentally.
Is that a new feature? I haven't seen that
Yeah,
before.
it's relatively new, and I think it's a bug in Windows because they wouldn't have added this patch, right? So for example, like I loop while the next target is below the horizon. So like I told you before, that's what our Arberculum does for me. It gives me this command, so I can just loop until whatever time. I don't have to know the time, it knows, and it will fill it in. So, it'll say it's at 12 degrees now, 12.94 degrees now. It's less than 35, so it's going to keep going and until it gets above the recommended or the required horizon, and then it'll move on to the next target.
And that uses your user-defined horizon if you plug it in?
It does, yeah. So it doesn't use the real quote unquote horizon, right? It's not like when the object rises. That's what I would call, the horizon. It's when it rises above your artificial horizon.
Okay.
So that's why, it's, this object has to get above 30, whatever, 35 degrees. And then it'll change this object has to get above 35 degrees. And then this one will just keep going through this loop until this next target is above 35 degrees, and then it'll just switch to this one. So, and there are lots of great, if you just type loop, for example. So, loop for time span is nice. It's a little surprising. Loop until time is actually more surprising because here, I'll just put it in and I'll show you. So it's just a matter of grabbing it and dragging it. And it acts as a logical OR. So if one of these is true, it'll go on to the next instruction, for example. So this loop until time, a specific time, or I just pick astronomical dawn and I go to bed. So it'll just run until astronomical dawn, and then it'll drop out, and eventually I have in this advanced sequencer, there's an end, basic sequence end here. So it will just park the scope and warm the camera, and it's done for the night. Warm camera, park scope. There you go. You also, in the advanced sequencer, you have the option for parallel or series instructions. So things that can happen at the same time, like warming the camera and parking the scope, you can put in parallel. So it's a little faster, a little more efficient. Things that have to happen one after the other, you would have to use a series instruction. So it'll, one after the other. So if you had, a warm camera, but take exposures first, you would not put those in parallel because they can't happen at the same time.
Okay.
You'd have to put those in series, but these instructions can be in parallel. So this little symbol here shows that they're going to happen at the same time. And the sequences I got from Patriot Astro. So here are all my sequences, and it has good instructions. Drop a sequence. It's that you can read too. So if it has this little thing, it's going to happen in parallel. If it has this, it's going to happen in series. So, I have it so that it starts up. Let me go back to the beginning. And so I'll just click on this little disclosure triangle to show you what's underneath. So, it waits for a certain time, it waits for astronomical dawn. So I can start this at 3 o'clock in the afternoon if I want to. And it'll just sit there and wait until that time. And then it'll cool the camera, and then it'll unpark the scope, and then it'll run autofocus. It's a little tedious if you're doing it manually, quote unquote, but it's totally a first world problem, right? So it'll just do these things, and then it'll just move through the sequence until you're done.
But for a newbie starting out, you could practice focusing manually, or I mean, through Nina, right? You wouldn't have to
Yeah,
have it
you
all in
could.
sequence to do it.
Yeah, what I like if in this, I have an imaging tab, so you could just turn looping on. So, and it'll just keep taking pictures. So you'll set your filter and your time. So, I might do the L filter for 1 second. And then I click on image down here, and it will have an image here. Again, my scope is covered right now, so I can't show you, but so you could adjust the focus, as it loops through, which is kind of what I do automatically anyway when I first was starting out to find out that 3900 that I used was the right place.
Okay.
Fortunately, in the focuser tab here, you can just move the focuser to a certain position and click move, and it'll just move the focuser. Now, some things it will cause us to be grayed out because if you can't do two things at the same time, for example, or if it's waiting, that's why it's grayed out. And believe me, I learned that the hard way. So, I have some manual focus targets just because in case if I ever um, want to just go to an area, let's say my 3-point polar line, which I have in here, or my polar line, doesn't require me to um, start from the current position, right? So I can turn this on and it'll, even if you slew to the wrong spot using the other plugin, even if you're not at the exact right spot, you can polar align from anywhere using this. So that's kind of cool.
Okay, one of my questions was, what are all those windows on the imaging screen? And you've showed us quite a few of them. Are there any others that a newbie would need to be aware of?
Um, there are, and there are great tooltips. If I so this is for the camera, this is for the filter wheel. Some of them are self-explanatory, some of them are not.
So you actually turn those windows on and off with that top menu up there?
Yeah, so I can turn something off here and so it just disappears from the main menu. So you
I
just turn
see.
it on or off here. And again, you can reposition these as you like. And if you get a little too happy and screw it up, there's an option to just reset it. And it goes to the default, which is not a great, I don't love it setup, but some people do. So, I partner with a friend in Seattle and he remotes into my scope, one of my scopes, and he uses a completely different setup. So he sets it up the way he likes it. He saves a profile for himself and he goes from there.
Okay. So before we get into the other questions, um, can you give us like a simple workflow to get that first image and make sure everything is working? How would you do that?
Yeah, so you could use the simple sequencer. I actually have it so that I forget how to switch. Um, do you know, Greg?
Um, yeah, that one of those there goes back to that one,
There
I
you go.
think. Yeah, that'll
So
take you back to
you
the
can switch
select
from the
one,
advanced to the simple,
and then you can pick
and
the.
then you can just load a target and do the simple sequencer that way. I prefer to use the advanced sequencer, as you know, um, because I've talked about it a lot. And the honestly, my friend uses the simple sequencer, and he thinks it does everything he needs it to do. But I don't even. I started using the simple sequencer, and that's what I fell in love with. But since the advanced one came out, I don't even really remember how to use the simple one, honestly.
Would you recommend a person starting out to use the simple sequencer to kind of get a feel for things before moving on to the more sophisticated version?
Yeah, the simple sequencer is still very powerful. It still gives you the ability to, autofocus at a certain time and to really image a couple of objects. Um, but I would recommend just start out with the advanced and forget about the simple one because they're gonna get rid of it eventually anyway, I think. So you might as well just learn the advanced one. It's not very hard to learn. With the it's kind of like, I don't know if you've used PixInsight, but if you don't know what you're looking for, you might not know what these things mean. But, if you want to loop over, I have a sequence here, it just switches my filters, it'll do two at a time. Yeah. And for 180 seconds, and it's a light frame. I'm binning one by one. And my gain and offset. So you can just choose from these different instructions. And if you don't know, guess, honestly. So if you want to look for an autofocus, personally, I don't love that they don't standardize. So you have to type it correctly. Of course, that's a problem. So you have all these different autofocus
Oh, I
options,
see.
and
Okay.
you can just add them in wherever. So if you get a red line, I'm pointing with my finger like you can see. So these are triggers. So, it, when something happens, to trigger these, like the autofocus gets screwed up, or if it needs a meridian flip, then they'll get triggered and they'll run. So, if my HFR has changed a lot, I consider 5% to be a lot. And that's right there, 5%. You could just type in 10% if you want to. And over the last sample size, you can specify that also. So this is what I've settled on 5 and 5. And the HFR, if it changes per filter, so if it changes from the luminance to the green filter, showing mono, then it doesn't matter, right? It's only per filter. So if the luminance, if the focus changes a lot on the luminance, then it'll change this.
So if you're not using an electronic focuser, if you're doing it manually, does is does those things get tracked? Does the HFR get tracked? So you can say, oh, it's changed quite a bit. I probably need to stop and focus.
Yeah, you can actually in the image, you can, one of the things here, one of the tabs, I guess, is SAR detection results. So it'll show the eccentricity, it'll show how much the HFR is. And one of the
Okay.
things here that you can get PANES, not PAINS, it will show that how the HFR has changed. You'll say, oh
Okay.
shoot, I better change that. I better refocus, and you can refocus there.
Got it. Well, that's pretty much all of the questions I had. Did you want to talk a little bit about what Joe had um, asked about at the beginning about writing a plugin to allow live stacking, I think was.
Yeah, I think there's a plugin for that already. Let's look at available. So these are all the plugins that exist already. Joe, you aren't finding anything? Are you still there?
Yeah, sorry, I was trying to find the unmute button. So
Uh-huh.
the difference between what I'm trying to do and what the nightly build is doing is the nightly build is doing something with the sequencer, whereas I'm using snapshot on a loop and in the main imaging square, so that way I can just
Right.
quickly go in between different targets.
So do you use the looping? You do use the looping? Where was it under imaging, right?
Yes.
Yeah,
So you just turn looping on automatically or what? How do you do that?
yeah. So I'll slew to target, slew and center, and then use the looping. And with this new plugin, it will give you the option to have different sliders so you can kind of adjust the auto correct or sorry, auto stretch. And then you can click the full screen button and it will completely fill your monitor screen. Or if you're using a tablet, like I will sometimes take a tablet with me to connect to the computer wirelessly,
Uh-huh.
and I'll be able to hold it, show people rather than having to try to zoom in on Nina. The sequencer is going to be the advanced sequencer. It'll be a live stack that you drop into the advanced sequencer as a step. So I think that's going to be similar to SharpCap, something along those lines.
Right. Yeah, I actually love SharpCap too. It's only like $15 a year. It's subscription software, but it's ridiculously cheap.
I use it for my polar line. I like that a lot more than the 3-star polar line in Nina. I'll switch from SharpCap's polar line tool and then go into Nina and use that for all my imaging.
I might do that occasionally too. I'm not saying for sure, but and like I said, SharpCap is so cheap, it's ridiculous.
Hmm.
But have you tried touching stars yet?
Yes, I have.
And have you
And
done it? Does it work
um,
well?
I like it when I'm at home. I haven't tried it anywhere like star parties or anything like that, but when I'm at home, I find that it connects a lot faster and easier than trying to use the Google remote desktop. Sometimes that gets a little glitchy.
Huh. And if you ever, just for everybody else, if you ever want to uninstall, like I was using a Wanderer power box on my rig, so I got these plugins, you can just click on uninstall, and there you go, it's gone. So now, those are the ones that are installed. Yeah, the 10 micron one is for my mount. Some of them are self-explanatory. Some of them are one-trick ponies, like the shutdown PC. It kind of shuts down your PC. It's kind of obvious. Some of them are much more complex and complicated. Um, so you can see them all here. And if you, like I said, if you click on it, it kind of tells you what it does. It has a link there. Check out his website. And Hocus Pocus is a great tool, by the way. I use it all the time. So the plugins, what language do you write that in, Joe?
So it's being written in C sharp,
Uh-huh.
and I've got it. I'm not in my ninth beta version in 24 hours or so.
Well, get some sleep, huh?
But as of right now, I've got it live stacking. You can either do real live stacking or take images from a folder and drop it in there, and it'll stack it. I'm working on an arcsyn stretch to
Hmm.
try to help keep the stars from getting too bloated and the nebula able to pop. So it's just kind of fooling around with it in the last 24 hours.
Right. So do you use any of these options under imaging options?
When I'm like normally doing the star parties, yes. So I'll normally have it stretch. I love Nina's stretch. That to me is like one of the best um, like natural stretches in any of these programs. So I'm kind of stealing ideas from the different softwares. I'm using the live stacking from SharpCap, that style. I'm using the Nina auto stretch for
Mhm.
the fits files, and using the sliders from SharpCap as well.
Gotcha. So just for everybody else that's watching, you do not have to be a programmer to use this stuff. Um, it's pretty straightforward. It's not an easy hobby to begin with, but Ian does a great job of making it as easy as possible. So meridian flip settings are kind of a challenge. Once I've found them and it works, then I don't ever change it, honestly. Do you use those settings, Greg?
I do. I found that Nina does a really nice job of doing meridian flips as long as you get things set just so that it works in conjunction with the exposure times that you're using. So
Mhm. So like if you have a 10-minute sub and the meridian flip is in 3 minutes, it's gonna just sit there and wait,
yeah,
right?
yeah,
So that's a little scary. You're like staring at your screen and going flip, 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 flip.
yeah. Or
It does
depending on
give you
how
good
far you let
feedback,
it go past the meridian too. So
right?
Hey guys, before you jump away from Joe, I just have a question for you real quick.
Sure.
So my understanding is that there's not a plugin you can download from the repository that does this live stacking stuff that Joe wrote his own program in C sharp and has been tweaking it to do what he wants it to do. Is that a synopsis of what we talked about there?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, kind of, sorry. There is a plugin, but you have to have the nightly build in order to download the plugin. So it's not on the released stable version, and it's
Uh-huh.
only for the sequencer, from what I understand. What I wanted was something that one, I could do live stacking with a full screen, and two, that I didn't have to build a sequence for every single target that I wanted. I know you can kind of drag and drop them in there, but at a star party, it's nice to, oh, well, you know what? I can't really see this target, so I'm just going to quickly find another one and go to Orion or whatever the case may be.
Right.
That sounds very useful for a star party. I wonder if that'll ever end up in the public domain.
That's the goal. That's why I was hoping that maybe there might be some people interested in testing it out and helping me. I'm not a programmer at all. Most of the heavy lifting is being done by Claude, and I'm going in and adjusting what needs to be done. But I'm sure that as we all do, you get blinders on and you start focusing on this, and somebody comes along and says, "Hey, why don't you do it this way?" And it's a completely, totally easier way to do it. So my hope was it just happened to be that tonight's topic was Nina, that maybe somebody out there would be willing to give it a try and let me know what they think.
Yeah, again, Joe, I think the because there's only about 19 people on this Zoom meeting, your best option would be to post this on the TAAA forum. Are you a member there?
Yeah, I am.
Okay, well, post, what you've told us about this, and then folks can contact you directly. So you'll have, the names and addresses of folks who are interested in being beta testers or making suggestions or whatever. One of the things you mentioned was having sliders to adjust the image itself, and I think that would be a welcome addition to the imaging screen, whether you're doing live stacking or not.
Oh yeah, without a doubt. I love where Nina starts in the imaging screen, which is why I use Nina for my star parties. And I this last weekend, because I don't know if anybody knows about Alley Cat, but I work with a lot of really smart people and a lot of engineers, and quite a few of them were like, "Well, is just this image, or is it going to get better? Is the noise going to go away?" I say, "Well, unfortunately, it's just this image. Oh, can you make it bigger?" Unfortunately,
Uh,
no. And then that's what got me thinking over the weekend. I said, you know what? I'm sure that I could do this. So let's find out first if there's something out there. And I didn't really see anything out there that met what I wanted. And second, if Claude could do it, and so far we're rocking and rolling.
that's excellent. Yeah. Any other questions for Alan while we're talking about Nina?
I just wanted to add, you see at the top here, it does say nightly unstable version. So they don't make any bones about it. So if it crashes, too bad, says that. Kind of. But I haven't, I usually, like I said, it would say if there was an update right up here. So it'll say, nightly version 19 is out. Do you want to get it? And just click on it if you want it, or you don't click on it if you don't want it. So it's pretty straightforward. And I will say the support for Nina is provided on Discord. I personally don't like Discord, but that's where it is, and that's the way it goes. And the guy who's the primary developer of Nina, his name is Stefan. He's really good. So you'll see, like most of my plugins are written by him. Like Orbiculum, Stefan
Stefan
Berg.
Berg, right? Yeah.
Yeah, he's the main developer of Nina. So if you tag him in Nina, he will answer. But there's a little bit of a language barrier, just a little. So like he's in Germany, so you have to consider the time difference also. But if your layout sucks, he'll just say, "Well, your layout sucks." He's he says, "Well, that's just I'm German. That's just the way we talk." Okay. So, but overall, whatever problem I have, I've been able to get help on Discord. So, again, it's a free program, and sometimes you get what you pay for with the support, but overall, it's been pretty great.
Okay. Well, thank you for that. I think you've, probably given us a good introduction, and as you can see from what's been discussed already this evening, this is a very powerful program that's available for free. So there's no reason not to explore it.
Yeah, the price is right.
Okay. I have a couple of announcements. Our next meeting will be on the third Monday of next month. That's April the 20th. Jeff Rothstein isn't on our call tonight for some reason, but our get together at CAC will be, for those of you who have signed up and been accepted to that, will be on April 12th and 13th. That's a Sunday and a Monday, and that's weather permitting. So somewhere a day or so before those dates, you'll get a notice via the TAA forum, whether or not it's a go or a no-go. And hopefully we'll have some decent weather last quarter of the moon. So we'll be ready to go there. Also, Jeff has been working on a special session that's not just for folks who usually attend this meeting, but it's going to be dedicated for individuals who are interested in smart scopes like the C-Star and some of the others. And that will be held on, I believe, the 29th of March. But that will also, there'll be an announcement posted on the TAAA forum. So again, if you're interested in smart scopes or you have one and you're trying to figure out how to use it, keep an eye out for that. That will be coming out shortly. As I usually mention, if you have images to share with the Desert Sky Bulletins, please send those to me. Try to make them less than 10 megabytes in size. And usually David Rossiter, who's the editor, will send out a notice on the forum that he's accepting articles and images, etc., for the Desert Sky Bulletin. And that's your cue to drop any images that you would like to see published to me. Not that they'll all get published, but we try to select between 10 and 20 images for the newsletter every month. Again, those try to make them less than 10 megabytes so we don't have to manipulate them a lot. Any questions?
Yeah, Greg,
Yes, Keith.
You mentioned the AISIG Star Party at CAC in April.
Yes.
Were we supposed to sign up if we wanted to come to that?
Yeah, there was a survey sent out a couple months ago. And because they can only take a limited number of folks, it was the folks who signed up way back when that first survey went out, as well as a few others. So if you didn't happen to see that, you may have missed the first time around. So we're going to see how this one goes, and we may do more of them in the future. So.
Okay, so it sounds like it's too late if I miss that opportunity. I'm not.
Yeah, if there would, I'm guessing that if there'd be a cancellation in the next few weeks from someone who's signed up and was authorized to go, if there'd be a cancellation, we'll post that online, and then it would be, some sort of a lottery. I think Jeff said that if there were available positions that weren't filled, that we would, take all the names and put them in a hat and draw the names out. So.
Yeah, this is Conrad. We actually have 2 rooms available. There's one cancellation, and there was just one available.
Oh, good.
So
I'm glad you're on here, Conrad.
Yeah,
I forgot you were here. Okay, so Jeff will be sending out a notice, or perhaps I'll send it out, so that you can say that you'd be interested in joining us on April 12th and 13th. And then we'll put those names in a hat, and 2 lucky folks will get to make the trip down there.
Yeah, I think we don't have anybody on the waiting list. So we actually have, so I think Keith could just send an email to Jeff.
Okay.
Jeff must be on vacation or something.
I think
if it's okay, I actually had it on my calendar, but somehow I had 2 different accounts on the member thing, and I guess I was missing some certain emails and stuff, and so I apologize. But and I don't, I understand if there are other people that want to come in and you want to do it as a lottery, that's fine too. But if there is an opening, I'm certainly interested.
Well, just contact Jeff Rothstein on TAAA and tell him that you're interested in taking one of those available positions.
Okay,
All right.
sounds
And
great.
anybody else who happens to be on the call, if you're interested, you can do the same thing. Okay, thanks everyone. And if there's no other questions, I think we'll call it for the night. It's an hour. I'll try to have the recording of this meeting published online on YouTube sometime tomorrow. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
Thanks.